I believe in our group. I know that we can still win 4 more.
This is his 50th NBA Finals game.
One thing about this Heat team, they're not afraid.
And Grant, his left leg. He's walking back to the locker room. The Lakers are absolutely on fire. An avalanche here from the Lakers in Game 1, dominating.
This was a complete performance by the Lakers.
All right, let's take a look back at last night's Game 1 of the NBA Finals. LA became the first team in the last 50 years to take a 30-point lead after trailing by double digits in a finals game. The 13-point comeback was the second largest in LeBron's 50 career finals games. In Game 1, LeBron and AD each recorded 25 points on 50% shooting for the 7th time this postseason, and that marks the most among teammates in postseason history. Now, in Miami's case, Goran Dragic and Bam Adebayo both left the game with injuries. Teams that lose Game 1 in the finals have won the series just 29% of the time.
At this point, it's all hands on deck, and it's not like the guys that were, potentially slotting into the rotation haven't played before. These guys have confidence and have played big roles for us all year long. Our depth has been one of our biggest strengths. It's not just coach speak. We've utilized our depth all year long. We've been in this bubble with an extra training camp, and everybody's gotten great work in, regardless of whether they've gotten big-time minutes in these playoff series. We'll just have to see, tomorrow who's available and make the adjustments accordingly.
And now we go live to the NBA bubble, where we find reporter Malika Andrews and NBA champion Richard Jefferson. Malika, let's begin with you. What more can you tell us about these injuries and how they impact the series moving forward?
Well, Ashley, let's start with Bam Adebayo. He had an X-ray last night the team said was negative, but then today he had an MRI, and that confirmed that he actually had a neck strain. And remember, he did injure that left side, which is the same side that his strain is on now during the Eastern Conference Finals against the Celtics. But Eric Spoelstra says that those two injuries are actually unrelated. Now, in addition to Goran Dragic and Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler also, if you remember, tweaked his ankle in Game 1. He was wearing a wrap today at his media availability, even though he said he'd be good to go in Game 2. Here's some of what Jimmy had to say about the Heat's mindset moving forward.
We're still expected to win. We got here for a reason. We realize we belong, but we also realize how well we have to play on both ends of the floor to give ourselves a chance to win. Obviously, we definitely need those two guys, don't get me wrong, but we've always said next man up when a man goes down. Right now, we're definitely going to have to do that. But I think it's tough to lose. Your mind's moving at 1,000 miles per hour, obviously not sleeping. But it's just because we all care. We all want to win. We all want to be champions.
And RJ, in your mind,
now
are the Heat
next man up?
Sorry, go ahead, Malika.
Ashley, that next man up. No worries, girl. That next man up mentality, Ashley, was a reoccurring sentiment that we heard over and over today at Media Day. But it's going to be a little tough, and you know this, Ashley, because the fact that Goran Dragic and Bam Adebayo were two of their leading scorers. Bam in the conference semis, and in the first round, that was Goran Dragic. He was their leading scorer, and Jimmy Butler in the second round. So that's going to be tough for them to replace. But expect, as I'm sure Richard is going to mention, Kelly Olynyk and Kendrick Nunn to be two of the players that are going to need to step up for them moving forward.
Definitely. RJ, are the Heat in danger of being swept if they don't have those two players?
Well, look, if you lose any of your top two players or your top two scorers, top two, 1 or 2 or 2 and 3, you're in danger of really, really struggling in the series. I'm not going to count out Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra and a Pat Riley team and say that, oh, this is a guaranteed sweep. But they were already not the favorites. And then to lose such an important piece of your offense, that pick and roll that they have with Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic is probably their #1 offense, in my opinion, because it forces the defense to pull in, and then you have shots for Jay Crowder. You have open shots for Duncan Robinson. We saw Duncan Robinson only got 3 shots. That's because one of the ways he gets shots is you're forced to help in on the drive of Goran, on the roll of Bam Adebayo. And so those two really open up so much offense for the rest of the team, and that's where their struggle is. I'm not going to say they're in danger of being swept, but it is going to be a long road in front of them.
All right. Well, that begins tomorrow with Game 2. It's coming your way tomorrow night at 9 p.m. on ABC. Malika, Richard, thanks, guys.
Sports Center on the road.
Rivers has agreed to be the next head coach of the Sixers team that failed to meet expectations entering the season. Rivers beating out Mike D'Antoni and Clippers assistant Ty Lue on that short coaching list. And we will have more from Adrian Wojnarowski as Sports Center continues. He's been all over this story. In the meantime, let's bring in NBA champ Richard Jefferson. And Richard, let's talk a little bit about the credentials here that Doc Rivers brings to this organization. He has won titles. He has dealt with big personalities, especially when you look at the big three in Boston, what he did with Pierce and Allen, of course, Kevin Garnett, and then most recently with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. The expectations were much higher with the Clippers. He failed to meet those. What do you look at this fit here with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons in Philly and now Doc Rivers, the head coach?
Well, let me first say that the expectations in Los Angeles weren't met after 1 year, but he was very instrumental in bringing Kawhi and bringing Paul George. And that's what's going to lead us to Philly. Ultimately, when you give him the Philadelphia 76ers, they're going to start building something that everyone believes has an opportunity to be special. But Doc Rivers, high level ability isn't just his ability to coach stars, but it's also his ability to recruit stars and bring people in and have the ability to buy in. I really believe that if he was given a little bit more time in Los Angeles, he would have delivered on that promise. But ultimately, he has a chance to do it with two very, very good superstars in Philadelphia.
RJ, you know about big personalities. You played with them throughout your career, most specifically winning a title in Cleveland with LeBron James and Kyrie Irving here. I'm not putting Embiid and Simmons on that level just yet. I'm just saying, how would you handle if you're Doc Rivers coming into this situation? They have yet to win together as a team.
Well, I think everything takes time and takes years. One thing I will say is that this team this year for the 76ers was not even close. They didn't have the shooters. They didn't have Bellinelli. They didn't have Ilyasova. They didn't have J.J. Redick. They didn't have Jimmy Butler. So to look at this Philadelphia 76er team and say that this was even remotely close to what they had in prior teams, I think they really need to start building out this roster around their two best player strengths. And that means that they need shooting, and they need a lot of it.
Okay, it's hard to find shooters around the league. And one thing they do have is also, and it's not a big three, but they have Tobias Harris. They gave him the max deal. They brought him in, of course, from the Clippers in a trade. They also have Al Horford. With that, the four ingredients here, can you keep these four together with this team with Doc Rivers and produce a winner in the East?
Well, I think you want to give them time. Understand that a lot of Tobias Harris' max contract was based off of how well he played with the Clippers. A lot of people thought that he had a chance to be an all-star that year because he was leading that very, very young Clipper team. So hopefully Doc Rivers can get that portion out of Tobias Harris. There is no doubt about his talent. There's no doubt about his ability. But can he take that next step and be a game finisher like Jimmy Butler was and also be a guy that can shoot at a very, very high level? That's what they need from him. But they have plenty of talent. They have the pieces, but they're still going to need more pieces to turn this team into a championship level team.
And RJ, this is a fascinating story with the dominoes here because Ty Lue was one of the names considered for this job from the start when Brett Brown was fired. Now Ty Lue was the assistant under Doc Rivers, and now we have an opening in L.A. What does this now mean for the Clippers and a guy like Ty Lue or even Mike D'Antoni, who was one of those guys on this coaching search for the Sixers?
Well, when Mike D'Antoni's name was brought up in Philadelphia, I was very, very confused. Nothing about Mike D'Antoni's time in this league said that he would work well with Ben Simmons, who wasn't a shooter, or Joel Embiid, who is really a natural big. And so I was really confused about that. I think the Clippers could be, a good look for him. But ultimately, I think Ty Lue and the way he has the ability to also talk to stars and also recruit players to come play in L.A., I think that would be a very, very key pickup for the Los Angeles Clippers if they were to able to get a guy like Tyronn Lue.
Okay, big off day here in the NBA Finals. You're from the bubble in Orlando, RJ, with the very latest with his thoughts on the Sixers deciding to go with Doc Rivers. Let's go to Ashley. Oh, wait, you know what? Actually, here's some more information coming in with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid on the court. The last 3 seasons, it really what stands out is when they were together, this duo in 2017 and 2018, the health and the optimism, an all-time high. Look at the minutes there on the right side. And then you see the numbers dramatically drop from 2 years into 2019, 2020, that net efficiency and just 840 minutes on the court together. Ashley?
All right, we're now joined by Adrian Wojnarowski. He broke this news, and he's on the phone joining us now. Adrian, tell us about why this was the best fit and how this came together so quickly.
Ashley, once Doc Rivers parted ways with the Clippers on Monday, Philadelphia's general manager, Elton Brand, very quickly got in touch with Rivers, with his agent, Lonnie Cooper, and he and Doc Rivers had an initial conversation and decided that it would be worth it for him to fly across country, come in to Philly, meet with Brand again, and then sit down with the Sixers ownership, Josh Harris, David Blitzer, and they did that last night in Philadelphia. And when they finished up last night, they were all ready to move toward negotiating a deal, and they got a contract done here late in the afternoon. Mike D'Antoni, in a lot of ways, was teed up and in position to become the Sixers' next coach. But once Doc Rivers became available, they decided that this was a coach who they weren't going to pass on. And for Philadelphia now, they returned Doc Rivers to the Eastern Conference, to a rival of the Boston Celtics, where obviously he won his NBA championship as a coach.
What do the Philadelphia 76ers believe that Doc can do with this talented roster, headlined, of course, by Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons?
Well, this is a Sixer team that wants to continue to tweak the pieces around Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. And remember, Tobias Harris is a tremendous investment for this Sixer organization. They ultimately decided to give Tobias Harris a long-term deal, and Jimmy Butler went on in a sign and trade to Miami. And remember, Tobias Harris had his best year in the NBA or his best season until a trade to Philly 2 years ago with Doc Rivers in LA. I know he was a big part of the conversation that they had about how to unlock Harris, get the most out of him, and certainly he's a big part of it. But and I think for this Philadelphia team, it's whoever's coaching the team, and now Doc Rivers, the ability to find the best way to maximize both Embiid and Ben Simmons. Elton Brand, the GM, has continued to insist that he's determined to keep building around those two players. And now, after Brett Brown leaves, here comes Doc Rivers to try to maximize those two and get the Sixers to advance deeper here again in the Eastern Conference playoffs.
And we know that Philly had options. They were considering Mike D'Antoni as well as Tyronn Lue. So what was it about Doc Rivers that made them hire him as head coach?
Well, listen, Doc Rivers for Philadelphia was, I think, his presence, his stature in the league. They really like Mike D'Antoni. And again, they were, if Doc Rivers is still coaching the Clippers, I think Mike D'Antoni is the Sixers head coach. But I think for Philadelphia, having really to have a face of the organization in that coaching position, Doc, listen, he transcends the position. He is a larger voice, especially in a city like Philadelphia. Basketball is important there. It is part of the fabric of that city. And to have Doc Rivers as the face of that organization as a head coach was something that really appealed to Brand and to ownership.
All right, Woj, thank you so much for joining us. Woj breaking the news that Doc Rivers is the new head coach for the Philadelphia 76ers. Kevin?
Ashley, let's go to some of the headlines. And